Outer Wilds is one of, if not the best game ever made, and Echoes of the Eye is its DLC. I admit, going in I was a bit skeptical. You can't exactly improve on perfection, after all. But I was about to be proven dead wrong, so allow me to whisk you away on a great adventure which treads elegantly on the seam between reality and dream. This is the Echoes of the Eye experience. The first thing I see when loading up the game is this message. Right on it goes. Look, I know they say knowledge is power, but I think the fact that a reduced frights option even has to exist is more terrifying than whatever it could possibly be suppressing. I head to the museum to get this DLC party started, and find the new exhibit. It's about the Deep Space Satellite, which was actually part of Outer Wilds proper, but wasn't particularly important. This led me to the radio tower, which has some photos taken of the solar system, but the one at 40 degrees seems suspicious. I go to investigate, only to knock the satellite completely off course. Fun fact, this actually renders the map of the solar system inoperable, which would be a tragedy if not for our Lord and Savior, the Time Loop. Anyway, what was thought to be an innocuous equipment malfunction turns out to be a real phenomenon, as I witness a huge shadow cast over the sun. Of course, I fly towards it. This is where the fun truly begins. Welcome to the Stranger, a cloaked mothership of sorts, and of unknown origin to boot. Whoever built this place must have loved unnerving music, because I'm already wanting out. Instead of embracing my inner coward, I delve into the craft, only to meet my greatest fear of all. An indecipherable language. Seriously, this marks a huge deviation from the original game already, as translating the Nomai language was our main way of learning about the world. It seems we'll have to change tactics in this place. One incredibly cool light-operated door later, and I was already in awe. Everything about this place, from its visuals to its music and even its Ringworld concept, just completely struck me. This was the moment I fully bought into the thought that maybe I was wrong. Maybe perfection could be improved. The theme of this place is light and darkness. There are light doors, an abundance of lanterns around the place, and it wasn't long before I found my first slide reel. That void left by the absence of translation was filled by these stunning slideshows of past events. It takes the concept of show don't tell to its extreme, and although I love both systems, this new way of storytelling is just brilliant. It's a different side of the same coin, but I'm really glad they spiced it up for the DLC. Also notable in this area is a church-like building which depicts these strange owl-elk hybrid creatures, presumably this place's inhabitants, going about life. Immediately I see that these guys tie into the greater story of Outer Wilds, as the slide reel reveals that they picked up on the Eye of the Universe's signal at some point, just as our old friends the Nomai did. It seems that these stranger inhabitants are not without their secrets though, as a sizable portion of the reel is ominously burned away. The next reel depicts the inhabitants sealing away some unknown entity, and it becomes my overarching goal to discover what warranted such an action. I find a burned building with a toppled depiction of the Eye of the Universe within. It's clear that this species' fascination with the Eye turned to malice at some point, but for what reason, I couldn't possibly know. Mid-slide viewing, I hear something crash and break. I go outside just in time to get front row seats to a massive tsunami headed my way. This brings up a really interesting point about the DLC. The Stranger is a dynamic place, things change with time, and new opportunities and challenges arise as a result. It plays into the time loop well, and keeps the area from starting to feel samey, which is good, considering almost all our time in the DLC is spent within its ring. My first big breakthrough came from this slide, which showed me a hidden passage behind the Ringed Planet's mural. Of course, I go to investigate, only to stumble into an incredibly unnerving scene. At least these skeletons had the foresight to construct a campfire, I think, as I use my marshmallows as a coping mechanism. Now, it was near the end of the loop, and I didn't want to live in fear forever, so I took a nap, expecting the corpses to suddenly get up and rend my soul from its flimsy corporeal host. Instead, I got jump-scared by water. Incredible! A mind-boggling surprise awaited me at the start of my next loop, as Slate was helpful for the first time ever, arming me with a method to access the Stranger more quickly. But how does the ship's computer remember where the Stranger is? In fact, how does it remember anything at all? Well, apparently it's made of the same stuff those Nomai memory statues are, allowing info to be stored between loops, which I thought was a really cute little detail. I head up to Hal to ask if he can translate another alien language for me, but unfortunately, 6 months is a little longer than 22 minutes, and my time is very precious to me right now. Anyway, after one of my patented smooth landings, I noticed that my fuel tank was damaged. I didn't realize this could be damaged. I spent the next 10 minutes slamming my ship into the ceiling to break it again after I mistakenly repaired it, and then the 5 after that staring at my fuel gauge going down. And surprisingly, this actually worked. I successfully made my ship useless. Wait, this took so long that I meditated to go to the next loop. Now, the inside of the Stranger may be interesting, but I wanted to be thorough and explore the outside as well, and it's a good thing I did because I discovered another secret passage. It led to some sort of experimentation chamber where the Stranger inhabitants would test these dream artifacts. I left to explore the general area before testing and found another desecrated worship building to the Eye of the Universe with a combination lock inside. Unfortunately, not even my luck could crack its code. I also found one of my favorite uses of the light doors in this area. This dilapidated house has a door which is locked from the inside, but prompts you to use the Scout when you're above it. The large cracks in the ceiling let the Scout fit right through and provide light to the locked door. I know this might seem kinda obvious to most, but I felt like a bit of a genius when I figured this out. Only for my reward to be the location of my previously discovered secret passage. I guess that's the price I pay for actively hunting for sequence breaks. Speaking of, I notice a weird part of a building jutting out with no obvious entrance. I go to investigate only to find my first of 3 slide burning rooms. This place has some major Fahrenheit 451 vibes, with slides and ashes strewn about the floor. I have a brief heart attack when I get locked in the small room with a spooky painting, but luckily said heart attack was busy that day and left swiftly. The slide I obtained from there is one I hold near to my heart, as it's the precursor for what's probably my most memorable moment of the whole DLC. But that's for later. Right now, it only shows an area with an invisible bridge. At this point, I feel I've thoroughly explored this cliffs area, and return to my original entrance point to conduct that lost experiment. I bring the artifact down to this place's bonfire room, and... yeah, I guess that middle chamber is charred for a reason. I quickly head back with curiosity in my heart, take the artifact that actually works this time, and descend down into my personal hell. I wake up, but all my skeleton buddies are gone. Not good. And my suit, also gone, jetpack included. Very not good. I walk out to confront a dark, unknown land. Very, uber, omega not good. Listen to the sound design. If you are calm in this situation, you are a psychopath. Reduced frights? I'm not really feeling it. How about no frights? Where's the setting that turns this whole place into a bright pink wonderland of candy and rainbows? I don't see that setting. Anyway, I calmly walk to this totem and create a bridge. I traverse said bridge into a house. I high-five this hand and explore the garden. I am totally fine. So, in case you couldn't tell, I am losing my whole mind right now. But I think I learned something important about myself in doing so. Watch. I saunter over to this window of sorts, see the thing I'm afraid of peacefully watching a slide reel, and what do I do but provoke it? Does this look like the actions of a scared man to you? But as I learned, no fear is powerful enough to stop me from causing just a little bit of chaos. The realization of what my stupid brain just did immediately sinks in, and I book it like a librarian in a burning building. That is to say, quietly. I end up at a familiar location, and remember the existence of an invisible bridge right between these candles. I wander along it, and proceed to make the best worst mistake of my life. I manage to convince my fingers to W-key me back into the house, now pitch black, its occupants aware of my presence. I was basically running on pure head empty energy at this point. I come face to face with the Bastion of Terror, and promptly run in the other direction. But let me tell you, these guys are smart. They'll close their lanterns and stalk you in the dark, forcing you to close your lantern in response. And navigating in pitch black with these things chasing you isn't exactly a jovial experience. I managed to conjure a bridge into existence and scurry away unscathed. The opposite side of said bridge my goal. As I walk further downward, I'm caught unawares, and by the time I react, my escape route was already blocked off. I blindly dash to the other end of the room, desperately searching for an alternate exit, only to be met by a sheer drop. I hope against hope that something will save me, but if nothing else, the rocks below are better than being caught. I walk off the edge, but then I keep walking. It's like I forgot to fall, and suddenly realization. This is another invisible bridge. This was the most memorable part of the DLC for me. The heightened emotion, the fear of the unknown, the pressure of being trapped, all alleviated by what felt like a genuine Deus Ex Machina. My apotheosis. I would be lying if I said these taunts weren't a bit personal too. What awaited me though was mind-shattering. The undamaged version of a slide, the restored middle depicting what I was truly in, a simulation, a dream world. But that's not all. The simulation, it's not exactly perfect. The world loads around the artifact, not yourself. And if you step outside of the bounds of the artifact, yeah. I went back to retrieve my light, but upon hearing the war cries of God knows what, I avert my plan and decide that I wanted to go take a dip the whole time. I re-enter the simulation, but this time from the bell near the reservoir. This area holds the coffin that the stranger inhabitants sealed away, so perhaps its simulated form will bear some juicy info. Turns out it does, showing me a clandestine crevice within a big tower. Within it resides 3 frames bearing the same symbols which are on the coffin's chains, presumably the unlock codes. This area also hosts 3 islands which I can't seem to access. At least I experience a pretty neat interaction between the real and simulated worlds, with these alarm bells sounding in both, tearing me from my slumber. I almost have an incredible moment of discovery here as I jump on the fire and meditate so as to start my next loop. The fire kills me first, and I wake up once more in the simulation, but I wasn't paying close attention and didn't find this remarkable. I roast myself once more, this time clad in an intense feeling of déjà vu. This time I find an elevator around the back of the hangar area, right as I board the stranger. I call down the elevator, and as any self-respecting Hearthian would do, throw myself under said elevator to check if it has any safety precautions in place. This time I find an elevator around the back of the hangar area, right as I board the stranger. I call down the elevator, and as any self-respecting Hearthian would do, wait for it to come down so I can use it properly. This leads to an admin room, where the stranger is depicted fleeing from the sun's supernova radius. This is the reason the stranger is dynamic, despite being perfectly stable for the presumed hundreds or thousands of years it's been in the solar system for. The sails get unfurled early on, then the dam breaks due to the stranger's speed. The ensuing tsunami then circles the ring world, wreaking havoc in its stead. Outer Wilds continues to impress me with somewhat reasonable explanations to my random questions. Really helps with the immersion. In the reservoir, I find this strange Riemann symbol with no purpose I can piece together yet. But that doesn't mean you're allowed to forget it. It's very important for later. I also stumble into another slide burning room, the second of 3. It provides me a slide, which tells me where to go in the simulation. I think you get the picture. There's no time like the present, so I go to capitalize on the 2 hints I have for the Big Tower's dream world. First I extinguish these 2 candles to open the door in the real world. Through the store I find a whole lot of nothing. All the combinations for the coffin's locks are burned, illegible. Well, at least I got the code to something. I race to the cliffside village, with the ending song willing me forward. I barely reach my destination and input the code, desperate for just one last morsel of information. Which is what I would have gotten if it weren't for this terribly slow elevator. I mean, come on! The comedic timing could not be more on the nose here. These petty squabblings mean naught, however, as with the power of video editing, I am back, quick as an elevator. This room, by all accounts, should have been a tad more impactful, but seasoned explorer I am, I stumbled into 2 of 3 slide-burning rooms already, through blind skill. The 3rd location is a nice find though, so you'd expect me to check it out, right? Well, before I can tell you that story, I have to tell you this story, because we keep things chronological here, no matter how stupid my order may be. For I just remembered I basically have Fulbright in the dream world and haven't been abusing it quite enough. Once again, my entrance of choice is the cliffside village, and oh goodness, an invisible bridge already! On the other side, I find a one-way raft, which starts to lead me right into a dark abyss. Being a bit paranoid, I decide the only way to stay safe here is to stay stealthy and extinguish the candle's light, only to drop through the world and end up wherever here is. I wade through the water to this island and, ooh, this removed one of the locks from the coffin. I boat back to the mainland and once again abandon my artifact, only to find a bridge of invisible platforms. After reconfiguring them and removing the second lock, I know I'm close. Tantalizingly close. But I just can't for the life of me figure out how to bypass these bells. Back to the slide burning room, I see a distinct lack of burning when this Giga Chad struts straight through the fire completely unfazed. I once again awaken in the dream realm, my goal to find this fireplace. I spot a deaf stranger inhabitant headed towards a house with terrifying cult music emanating from within. I pursue, using the noise as cover, but in a twist of fate it seems I was the one being duped, as upon entry the door shuts behind me, and I'm greeted by a room full of what I'm sure are lovely people, right? I stand there to think for a while, but there's really no way out of this one. I simply have to walk forward and accept my fate. Wait, what? I really thought my face was about to be bitten off there, but really? I guess they just don't want to be bothered. Oh well, it's not like that's going to stop me. Especially when I'm not even afraid of these guys anymore, now that I know they don't want to lacerate my corpus into confetti. I redouble my efforts, now taking on the big tower's dream realm. One eclipsed bell and a high five later, and I'm ready to extinguish. This section was significantly easier than the other ones. With so much open space, I was able to bypass this archive's gatekeepers with ease. Here, I learned the reason for the stranger's inhabitants' hatred towards the Eye. They saw a vision, one of the Eye wiping them out entirely. Unable to come to terms with their own inevitable demise, they built a device to seal the Eye's signal so that no other may ever find it. I told you this room would be important later, but if that's the case, then why is the connection to such an important device severed? And why is its switch burned so badly? In other news, I finally realized what happened to me when I meditated on top of that fire earlier. Apparently, you don't actually need to be alive to enter the dream world. I mean, I guess I should have figured this out based on the fact that every single stranger inhabitant is a literal skeleton, but the only thing keeping their memories alive is the flame in their artifacts. This was when I remembered that war cry that caused me to evacuate my first archive. And it was suspiciously well synced with the dam breaking in the real world. I hypothesized that our war cry might be more of a death cry, and prepared to put my theory to the test by entering the trapped house once more. This time I walk in with swagger and panache, fully intent on waiting here for the flood to snuff these monsters' flames, but it appears they're still one step ahead as one step behind me another arrives through the door. By the time I get back there, it's already abandoned. I was in remiss, my opportunity to gloat in the faces of the creatures I had for so long feared, gone. But in spite of my incredible pettiness, I pressed on through the fire and flames. Down in the archive, the worst thing imaginable happened. I started to feel bad for the stranger inhabitants. It's revealed that they had to go through some immense sacrifice and strife to get to our solar system. Their entire home planet was a victim, stripped bare to make way for the colossal cosmic craft known as the Stranger. They did this only to arrive and find the Eye of the Universe an untenable goal, growing both fearful of it and despising it for what it did to them. The Eye caused them to destroy their previous home, and for what? Nothing. They were homesick, but with no home left to go to. So they erected a huge simulation to act as home in its place. It's a tragic tale, the inhabitants feeling more comfortable to live forever in their constructed paradise than to face their bitter reality. But if this characterization of them is true, what could have possibly provoked them into sealing whatever it is away in that coffin? I will find the reason, or die like a damn idiot trying. All of the pieces of the final puzzle are now clattering around in my brain. All I need to do is comprehensively put them together. I head for the cliffside dream world, making sure to get a little toasty before I go to sleep. I douse the candles of the boat when in between parts of the dream world, and I find myself in this shallow lake for a second time. First lock, gone. I stray for my artifact to reassemble the ghost bridge. Second lock, gone. I've been here before, but this time I'm dead. There is no host on the other side of this dream body, no ears to be woken up by the beating of the bells. Final lock, gone. All that's left is to see what's inside that forsaken coffin. an antechamber, a single telescope as decoration, an elevator along with an intense sense of foreboding, a singular light source belonging to this place's prisoner. It's one of their own. They allow me to look into their memory, into what happened to them. They deactivated the signal jammer, allowing the eye to resonate once more. But it came at a heavy cost. The price of not living in fear was a life of its own. And a useless effort it was in the end. That is what the prisoner must think. But they do not possess the full picture. We do. Outer Wilds is a beautiful game. Echoes of the Eye accentuated that fact. There were many unknowns in Outer Wilds, the most prominent being why the Nomai failed to locate the Eye. Echoes of the Eye strives to answer that question, and succeeds in every regard. It tells its own story, while amplifying what came before it. It makes you feel intense emotions, fear, wonder, the excitement of discovery, and to me, it sets a new precedent for what a DLC should hope to achieve. Outer Wilds is a beautiful game, and thank you for watching Echoes of the Eye.